Throughout this demo, I will take breaks between each section to allow for questions. However, if you do have a question or if you would like me to go over a section again or a specific function, please feel free to use your mic and speak up, use the raise your hand function or put it into the chat. Okay, so for those of you that are familiar with Acusera 24/7, there will be some topics covered in this demo that you might already know, but the majority of the start of it and the rest of it will actually cover some of our new functions, including navigation changes and UI changes. So Acusera 24/7 is a cloud-based software. It is used for peer group comparison and internal quality control analysis. By cloud-based, I mean that it is accessed through any user that has an internet connection and access to a browser. By a browser, I mean the likes of Google Chrome, Internet Explorer, Mozilla Firefox, etc. Whenever a customer or a user first purchases Acusera 24/7, we will send them details for their logins, so they will get a username and password generated for them. They will then go to the website to get access to the software. I'm currently using a demo site. However, our users would go to qc.randox.com and you'll see that there is no difference between each site. Okay, so whenever they get here, they have two choices. They can choose which language they prefer to use Acusera 24/7 in. If they don't choose a language, the default is English. They will then log in using the details that were provided. And once they've done so, they will be greeted, with the homepage. You'll notice that the homepage has changed. For those of you familiar with the previous version, you will notice a massive change in the homepage. Where in the previous homepage, we had navigation icons that are found on the left and right hand side. These would have been found in the middle of the screen, so a user may click on these. And on the left-hand side would have been tiles that directed the user to our other software platforms. These are now kept on the top right in a little portal environment where they can decide whether or not they wish to access their Ricus, Verify, RQC, or Ricus POC accounts. Okay, when a user first logs in, they'll be prompted to change their password. To do this, we go to the little person symbol at the bottom left. Whenever we hover over it, we get a drop-down menu which shows our username at the top. And we have three options. Those three options include user access control, preferences, and the option to change the password. If we were to click on user access control, it will bring up the user management page. On this page, we'll be shown our lab name, so the name of the account, the membership level, the type, will then be shown the lab owner, so the account, the user that is the lab owner, and the expiry date of the subscription. Below that, we will then have a table of our users, which will include the details of them, including their username, first name, last name, their preferred language, and their role within the account. On the right-hand side, we'll see our deactivated column. We use deactivations rather than deletions because whenever data is entered into Acusera 24/7, that result or piece of data is affiliated with the account that put the data in. So if we were to delete a user, it would then remove the result in the system. However, if we deactivate, that result will still stay present. The problem with deletion and a deletion of a result means that that result will no longer be included in that account's statistics, reports, and charts. To create a new user, simply click on Add New. Type in the user's email, their first name and their last name, their preferred language, and then select their role. Within the software, we have 4 preloaded roles with specific permissions for each. The first role that we have is our admin role. Then we have our coordinator, our manager, and our user. Our admin role is the role that has the most amount of permissions. By permissions, I mean that they are able to perform the most amount of functions within the software itself. So an admin may view, create, delete, and edit results, the same as charts. They may also review results, whereas a user will not be able to review or delete results. A coordinator role is slightly different in that it is a unique role that is placed for a user that works within an individual lab that forms a part of a group. If we have a situation where we have a group of labs that all use Acusera 24/7, that coordinator role will be able to view and compare results between all of the labs within that group. We then have the manager role, which is the same as the admin role, but with slightly less permissions. And finally, our custom. If we were to select the custom role, we can then go down and select what we would like that user to be able to do. To do this, we simply click the little triangles on the left-hand side and select what options we would like them to be able to do. If you'd like them to be able to do all of the things within the column, then simply click the top checkboxes. Once you've selected the permissions for the custom role or selected a predefined role, simply click Save. That user will receive a username and password to the email that you've put in. And whenever they log in, similar to the initial first person on the account, they'll be prompted to change their password to a unique one. Okay, I'm going to go back to the home page now, and I'm going to begin to go over some of the new details. You'll notice at the very top that we have our data export function. This was previously in our utility section. Our utility section has moved from the left-hand side to the right, and you'll see it under this little spanner icon. The data export function is useful for those who want to see result history on a specific test. You'll notice that on this page, we have all of our QC tests, and this homepage acts as our navigation hub for the software. So if we were to select a QC test, we'll just clear our selections. And then select the date range we would like to see the results from. To do this, we click on the calendar icon, and it will bring up a small calendar to choose from the dates. If we want to change the dates, we can go back and click the header. If we click the header, it'll bring us into a monthly view. If we click again, it'll bring us into a yearly view. Once we click Data Export, an Excel file will be generated with the results that we have chosen for that date range. I'll just show us what that Excel file looks like. Okay, so on this Excel file, the first thing we'll notice is our Randox demo at the top. So this will be replaced with the user's lab name. So the lab name will be at the top. And then all of the information will be filtered by assay. So the assays that we've chosen, the instrument in the QC test, the date and time of each result, the initials of the person who put in the result. The difference that you'll notice is these initials for 1E, they denote a specific data entry system. So within the software, we have 3 data entry options. We have our manual data entry, our semi-automated, and our automated. The 1E initials are used to show that the data was entered via our semi-automated Edi import. I will go over all the data entry options later on in the demo, but just be aware that the 1E initials means that that data was entered using our semi-automated system. Okay. Beside that, we have our lot information, so our first level of lot and the name. We then have our count, so the result, so whether that be 1 result, 2, 3, and then we have our mean, so the mean of those results. If it is 1 result, then we have the value of that singular result. Beside that, we have our SD and our SDI values, And then we have our alerted and a rejected column for our first slot. Our alerted column is used to show if the result has caused any alerts within the system. Alerts can be caused if they have broken any multi-rules, performance limits, etc. And the same applies for rejections if they have broken any multi-rules or performance limits that would cause a rejected value. If we scroll over, we can then see our manual status of the result, any comments that have been placed on that result, and any review comments that have been placed. If we keep scrolling, we'll then see the same information for our second level and our third level of lots. Okay. So I just want to point out whilst we're here that we have a value in yellow. Acusera 24/7 uses a color-coded system to show alerts and rejections. Alerted results will be in amber and our rejected results will be in red. This is shown in the software itself on its charts, in its statistics, and its reports. It's also shown in any files that are downloaded or exported from 24/7. That color-coded system will then follow through. We'll then show our rules have been broken in our alerted column and our rules have been broken for a rejected value in a rejected column, namely a 13s, 14s, and a user-defined rule for our rejected value here. Okay. So any questions over anything I've covered so far before I move on? No? Okay. No questions. Perfect. Okay. So now I'm going to go over some of the navigation features. I'm going to work my way from the top of the page to the bottom. First thing you'll notice is we have our QC test and QC panel slider. When it's set to QC test, which is highlighted in orange, we'll have all of our QC tests that we have loaded into our account shown on the page. If we click the slider, it will then open up our QC panel. So this will be all of our custom QC panels that we have entered into the account. These can be made completely custom and are totally up to the user what they would like to include in each panel. The next thing to show is our filters. When they are off, we simply see the headers at the top. We turn them on. We then have search functions below each one. So in a scenario where we have hundreds of tests, just like in our demo account here where we have 238, we can then type in an analyte that we wish to look at, and we can find them very quickly. This can be as specific as the user prefers. So if we want to choose by instrument as well, select the QC test we wish to look at, clear our filters, and we'll come back to the start. There's two ways to know whether or not we have QC test still selected. We'll notice that on the first page, we only have one QC test. However, our clear selections button is now clickable. And also in the top right-hand side, we have our new preview function. This little window to the right. And this little window will show any QC test that we have selected and provide us with other functions we're able to do. So if we click clear selections, go back to the preview function, we'll see that we have no test selected. The next button is our hide closed. So within the software, you're able to close tests rather than delete them for archiving and auditing purposes. If we were to deselect our hide close button, we can then see tests that have been previously closed. These are shown in a faded out gray color. And also whenever this button is deselected, we then get a closed column and ticks beside each test that has been closed. Just beside that again, we have our open and our close selected QC tests. So if we were to select a couple of QC tests that have been closed, click open, we'll be given a prompt as to whether or not we want to open these tests or not. In the same fashion, we can also select open tests, use the button, click close, and we then can close those tests if we want. I would like to point out now that if you're choosing close tests and then we close our view, those tests will still be selected in the background. again, the preview function and the clear selections button will make that clear to you. So if we use the preview function, we can see that we have tests selected, even though they are out of our view. Okay. The next new button I want to go over is our new QC test at the bottom of the home page. When we click on this, we can then set up a brand new QC test and completely configure it from scratch. So we begin by choosing an instrument. Just choose our Cobas. Once we've chosen an instrument, our assay drop-down box is selectable. Any of the assays within this drop-down box are specific to that instrument, i.e. there will not be any assays in our assay drop-down box that instrument does not analyze. So if we choose an assay, and then, oh, no lots set up for that. And then we can choose our lots. And our lots, again, similar to the assays, are specific to the assay. So you will not get lots that cannot, that don't have the material for analyzing that analyte. So if we choose as many lots as you prefer or need, click Save, and it will create the QC test, and the details of which will be at the very top here. We can then go on to completely configure the test by clicking on the little triangles to the right. And the first thing we look at is our stats comparison. So this is how our statistics are going to be compared against our peer group. We can simply decide which ones we prefer by clicking on each slider. At the moment, we're just going to leave it at all methods. Click Save, and we will have our stats comparison saved to that test. The next option is our performance limits. Whenever we click on our performance limits, we are then greeted with this table. Within our performance limits, we have several options available. We have our biological variation, our CLIA, our RICUS performance limits, and our user defined. If we were to select RICUS, we will then have a percentage range of performance limit automatically generated into the column. If a user wants to use user defined and they know the performance limits they want to apply, they can type in what the performance limits they would like for that lot. On the right hand side, we have effective from. Our effective from column shows when we would like that performance limit to apply. So we can select a future date and time. To select a time, we simply click on the clock. To select a date, we click on the calendar. We then have our status column, and this denotes whether or not anything within the software occurs. So if that performance limit was broken and the status is set to inactive, there will be no alert, there will be no rejected value. However, if we select alert, it will cause an alert. If we were to select reject, it would cause a rejection. It would cause that result to be a rejected value. However, we would like to point out that if a user selects reject and they have rejected values, however, they want all of their results to be included in their peer group comparison, we would then urge them to choose alert, as any results that are rejected will not be included in their peer group comparison charts and statistics. So we'll set both of these to alert and click Save. Our next option is our targets. So as you'll see, when we go to our type of target, the cumulative is selected as default. Cumulative means that there will be no mean set for that lot and that test until 20 results have been entered. However, we do have the option to choose fixed. If we choose fixed, we can then type in the mean of the result that we would like. So we'll say, and an SD value as well. And we can also choose when that's effective from. Once we've done choosing our targets, we can click Save, and it will assign those targets. We then have our interprecisions. This is where we can set our interprecision values and interprecision percentage for each lot for the QC test. We're going to leave them blank for now and click Save and move on to our multi-roles. Whenever we open our multi-roles, we're given a table of multi-roles that we can choose from with abbreviations down the side to denote how those multi-roles are used. And then we have further explanation from the number of results and the number of SDs, and then we can choose whether or not that rule causes an alert or a rejection. You do this simply by clicking along, and that is, again, totally up to the user. There is the option to create a custom multi-rule by clicking Add New. Once we do this, we get the ID, and the ID will bring up, similar to the previous page, abbreviations. These show the format of the multi-rules that you're going to create. If we were to click 2 of 3, we won't be able to choose a number of results because it's 2 of 3. However, we can choose our SD. So if we choose 2SD, click the tick, it will create that multi-rule, and then we can save it onto our list and choose it and apply it to that QC test. However, we're not going to do that this time. Instead, we're going to click the back button. That brings us back to the page. Click Save, and it'll apply all of the multi-rules we've selected to the test. The last thing I'm going to show on this page is our QC panel. There's a new function for our QC panel. If we click on New QC panel, it'll bring up our panel configuration page. So the first thing you do is choose your panel name. And this can be whatever the customer decides they would like in their panel. So if they would like to do it by chemistry type, they can click at the top on the headers and it will sort all of the data by ascending. If you click again, by descending, click again, and it will reset the sorting function. So if we had a customer that wanted to have all of their blood gas analytes, or sorry, chemistry types included in their panel, we simply sort, choose all of the analytes that are appropriate, come to the bottom of the page, move 2 options. We can either save the panel now and it will save in the order of the list that we have, or we can click Change QC Test Positions. When we click here, we're given a prompt to let us know that the panel has been created. We can then choose what order we would like these tests in on the panel. So in a situation where a lab runs one test more than another, they may prefer to have that test shown at the very top of the panel. To do this, we can see this little 4 arrows where the cursor is changed into. If we click and drag, you'll then notice a triangle and line showing where you're going to move that analyte and test. So if I move it to the top, and we move our glucose behind it, click Update, then we know our changes have been applied. If we want to double check that, back to the home page, to the QC panels, we can then go in our QC panel. We can find the one that we used. And we also get information on the number of tests within that panel. You'll notice at the top it says open and total. If we had closed tests within here, say for example we had 3 closed tests, this number would be 18 out of 21. When we open up the panel by clicking the triangle, we can see that the order has been changed to what I had chosen. Okay. Does anybody have any questions on the new QC test or QC panel buttons?
So far, thanks.
Okay, perfect. The next thing I want to show is our data entry. So like I was saying before, we have 3 data entry options. First is our manual, which I'm going to be going over. And second is our semi-automated, which is, it involves a CSV file being generated by a lab's LIMS or middleware. And then the user simply comes in and imports that file using our import menu here. And then the third option is our Acusera Connect. Our Acusera Connect is used for automated import of data It involves a secure file transfer protocol where a file is generated by the Limser middleware and the results are automatically imported into the user's account. This importing of data and results can be completely custom in terms of how often it is done. So it can be done every 5 minutes, half an hour, or at the end of the day, it is totally up to the customer. Okay, so yes, I will be sending an email out to everybody who was present today. And if you would like details on how to access the system, etc., for a demo account or training account, I should be able to provide those to you. Okay, so for our manual data entry, so we have several options available. You'll notice that our old data entry option, that's no problem at all. Our old data entry option, where the little pencil has moved from the left to the right. We also have our new feature of the 3 dots beside each QC test. When you hover over these, you get different options for that test. So we have our result history, our charts, our data entry, configuration of the test itself, the instrument within that test, or the assay. If we were to select a specific QC test and go to data entry, it will bring up our data entry screen. Similarly, if we have one test selected and go to our pencil and go to data entry, the same screen will appear. I'm just gonna, okay. So, however, if we were to select several, go to our data entry, we'll then get several different assays. And we can enter results simply by pressing next. And you'll see that the assay changes. We'll also be given details on the total allowable error and the bias that's been applied to those assays. Whenever we get to this screen, we have several options on how we'd like to enter the results. We can enter them in as multiple result entries, where we know that there is several results. So if you have a scenario where you have 30 results you're going to enter and you're just going to enter the mean, you can type in on the count 30, the mean to be, and then you can type in an SD value as well. You also have the option to leave it as 1 and type in a mean. So this will be the result, the true result value. And then the SD function will then be turned off. If we click the tick, it will generate that result. And we can go along then, click next, and enter results for our next assay. If we switch to the mean results, it'll then just allow us to enter in a single result for each. So if we were to enter, let's try. Click the tick, and it'll generate the result. If we click single, we'll then be able to see those results and the tests in a different format where we can just click on each one and type in results. So if we were to click here, hi, hello, and click save, it'll save those results. If we go back into multiple, click review, it'll then give us the option to review those results as well. So, oh, I've just saved those results. Give me 1 second. So if you were to do the multiple again, type in the result. Go to review. We can then click beside each analyte that we've entered results for. Was it? And it will show which results you've entered. I'm not too sure which ones I've entered results for this time though. 1 second, I need to reduce the amount of analytes I have selected. So we'll just do album FP. Okay, click on review. We open these, we can now see the results that have been entered. It will also show the date and time of the result whenever that result was created. And if we wanted to edit these, we can then click on the little pencil icon and we can go back to that result screen. We can edit them by clicking on the pencil. We can delete the result by clicking on the little trash can at the side. Okay. If we go back to review, it will keep those results. Click submit. It will then enter those results as well. Okay. The next thing I want to show is our Edi import. So Edi import is our semi-automated system, like I mentioned before. To do this, we have to configure it. To configure it, we go to our configuration. We can then create a configuration that is specific to a specific machine instrument, a specific analytes, or to a specific chemistry type that you can see here. To create a new one, we click Add New. We use a file to configure it with. So if we were to click Open, choose a file, it'll then show all the data that's within that file. This is normally shown as the analyte that's been tested, the instrument name, the lot number, the time and date, and then the result value, and then the units. They can give whatever name they prefer. Sometimes they prefer specific instrument model names. We're just going to call this test. And then we have our delimiter characters. Our delimiter characters is our commas in between, but these could be the likes of a semicolon, colon, pipe, or a dot. In our case, it is a comma. We have our date and time joined function. If our date and time are in one and there's no delimiter character, but we can see that there's a comma, we would turn this on. Then choose the correct date format, the correct time format, and we always start our import on 1. We can then choose our assay. So our assay is going to be ALB. Our instrument is going to be our RXA. Our lot number is going to be our 111UN. Our date, our time, our result, and then the user and the unit is not currently brought across, as we know that the user is default to 1E. If we click Save, it will then create the configuration. We then could go to our Edi import, choose the configuration, select the file, open, click Upload, and it will then upload the results. It will also give us information on the ones that have been successfully inserted, and it will tell us why certain ones were not. And we can see here that we have missing mapping IDs. So there has been assays inside that file that we don't currently have mapped. In terms of mapping, we could then go to our Edi mapping and go through our mapping IDs. So we do this by assay. So our mapping IDs are all in this drop-down box. If we went by assay and sort by ascending, we can see that it's not quite the same as our file. And then we can simply, to change that, click on it, change the ID, re-upload the file, or create a new one, and then we will be able to upload those results. I would point out that if a file is uploaded but the results aren't included, If you change the mapping ID with Acusera Connect, it is the same function with where we have to have configurations and mapping done for the Acusera Connect to work. If the mapping isn't right for Acusera Connect, that file will still be uploaded and all the results will be uploaded if the mapping gets fixed. So as soon as the mapping is fixed, the results will then be entered into the system. Is there any questions over anything I've covered so far? I know I've just covered quite a lot in quite short succession. Okay. The next thing to show is how we add events to instruments. So if we have a scenario where a instrument has had recalibration or maintenance done, and we want a way of being able to show that on our charts to then maybe explain why a specific trend or bias is occurring on our results. To do this, we go to our configuration and we go to instrument, and it will bring up our instrument configuration page. We then select the instrument that the maintenance or the event has occurred on, double click, and it will bring up our instrument event page. It'll bring up the name of the instrument that we've given it, the manufacturer, group, and model, and it will also bring up our instrument events table showing any previous instruments that have occurred. Create a new one, click create event, and we add a title. A date and time that it occurred, and a description. And click save, and it will add the event, and will also give us a prompt letting us know to check our Levi Jennings chart. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to show is our data review functions. So these are one of the things that were asked a lot by our customers. Okay. If we choose a QC test, and I will show you. Okay. So previously we had our dashboard icon on the left-hand side, and now we have our QC review menu instead. Within that, we have our dashboard and our data review and our auditing. I will quickly show our dashboard first. Whenever we open our dashboard, we have three choices. We can choose our alarms. Whenever our alarms are switched on, we can see any result that has caused a rejection or an alert within the past 7 days. It'll give the date, the instrument, the analyte, and the rule that was broken to cause that rejection. When we click on the little triangle, it will then show us the lot number, the number of results, and the mean or the value of those results. If we double click, it will open up the result history, and it will show those results within the data range selected within the past week, sorry. If we scroll down, we have our generate statistics button. So on our result history page, we can choose any date we prefer. But if we click generate statistics, it will generate the statistics for the results that are shown on the page above. We'll then get our lot numbers, and our statistics will be broken down into a monthly and a cumulative. So by cumulative, we mean that that is from whenever the first result is entered for that lot, and the count stops for the cumulative number whenever the statistics are generated. So we have a monthly count of 3 results and a cumulative count of 422 for 307 UL. And then we have our means, our SDs, our CV percentage, our bias for each one, our sigma scores, our total error, interprecision, uncertainty of measurement, expanded uncertainty of measurement, and both of them as a percentage as well. Okay. The next option we have on our dashboard is our lot expiry. If we turn this on, it'll then show any lots that are expiring within the next 90 days. I'm going to move on to our data review. So our data review page is one of, like I mentioned before, one of the things that was asked for by our customers. This is a function that allows users to create a report that can be within a date range of 1 to 7 days, and it will produce a report that shows all of the results that have been entered within that date range for across all analytes and instruments. It will show whether or not they've previously been reviewed and whether or not they have caused a rule violation. So this is shown in our status column, and it is also shown in our rule column. If a rule has been broken and an alert or a rejected value has occurred, our status will change and our rule column will also change. We will see which rules have been broken in order to cause that status. You also notice that we have our orange bar creeping across the top. This is our progress bar, which is used to show how much data that you have asked to be populated has been generated into the report. So once this reaches the other side of the report, the progression has completed. You will notice as well that our filters have just appeared. So once the report has finished generating, we can then filter through the report. We can filter by review category, where we can look at all of the values, just the reviewed ones or just the not reviewed results. We can look at it by review type, by rule violation, so all of our results that have caused a rule violation, or by rejected only, or alerts. And also filter by instrument and by specific lot numbers as well. Okay. So in the case that we have rejected and alerted values, and we will not reviewed, we can apply reviewed actions to these. So by that, I mean in our action column, if we click on it, we get a drop-down box. We can choose a action for whether or not we have reviewed it or acknowledged it or checked it. We can add further actions as well. Now, if we choose reviewed, if we select the checkbox and then select the top one, click save, it will then save our action to all of the selected QC tests within this list. If we were to increase the items, follow the same procedure, it will apply that function, that action, to all of our selected QC tests. So when we click save, we can see that those data review actions have been added. You'll also notice that we have our Excel and our Adobe icons at the top. If you hover over them, they are highlighted. If you were to click these, it will then produce a file that is downloadable, and a user may then archive that for daily result history. So any questions on the data review function?
It's okay, Adam, please.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Next thing I'm going to show is our charts and our reports. So just like our data entry with two options, we can choose our charts from here. If we had several chosen as well, we can also use our preview function and go to our charts from there. Or we can now use our charts icon on the right-hand side. For now, we're just going to use this button here. When we get there, we have our charts webpage. We start by choosing a date range. And the chart that we wish to look at. So we have three charts available. We have our Levi Jennings, our histograms, and our performance summary charts. Our performance summary charts are our peer group comparison charts. Okay, so we choose our Levi Jennings, choose which lots we wish to look at, and click generate. Once we've generated the charts, we'll have our individual lots for each test shown as a Levi-Jennings chart. You'll notice that on these charts, we have our SDI ranges on the left, we have our actual result values on the right, and our date range on the bottom. Each individual value is shown either as a green, yellow, or red result. Green value denotes that we have an accepted value that has fallen within our performance limits or targets and hasn't broken any multi-rows. When you hover over each result, it'll give you some information, including the date and time of that result, the result value itself, the SDI value, and whether or not it was accepted. You'll see if we hover over a yellow one, it will then show us our alerted status and why that alert has occurred. The same thing for our red, it will then show that we have a rejected status and why the rejection has occurred. You'll notice that some of the results are shown as triangles. This is due to a comment being added to them. So we can see here that we have a standard comment and a review comment. If we wanted to add a comment to a value, we hover over the result, click on it, and it'll bring up the menu to add a comment. So we can simply type one in, or we can select one from our drop down, which will show all our previous comments. So type one in if we want, and we can select the drop down on this one. And then once we're done, we can either delete the comment or we can save it. Whenever we save it, it changes to a triangle instead. There's a few interactions with our Levi-Jennings page. So a user can zoom in on a specific area of the chart. Do this by clicking and dragging, and you'll see within this triangle, or sorry, this square that I've drawn, whenever I let go, it'll zoom into the area that I had drawn. This can be done as many times as the user prefers. Click the reset zoom and it brings us back. You can also add a means line, which will show a means trend, and you'll notice that the means trend is going outside of our SDI range. If we come up to the top, we have our SDI fixed and variable slider. If we were to choose variable, regenerate the chart, we then can see results that are falling way beyond our 3 SDIs. Go back to fixed. I just want to point out that we can set our means and turn our individual values off as well. The last thing I want to show on the individual charts is that we have an event line right here that is shown as a big red linear line at a date range whenever that event occurred, as well as the title of the event that happened. So this can be useful if we had a sudden trend change where our results have then decided to go along a different trajectory. Okay. If we click combine, it will combine all of the tests that I'd selected onto one chart. Each lot within those tests is then shown by a color code. If we hover over, it will highlight them on the chart. If we click on them, it will deselect them, and we can reselect them as well. This chart is also viewable in a variable format. If we were to change the unit to a percentage deviation, this will show a percentage deviation in terms of performance limit on the chart. So each result, if we were to hover over it, gives us different values. So the statistics shown instead is our running and target mean and target SD and the performance limit value, as well as our result, the deviation of our value within our performance limit as well, and whether or not that result has been accepted. That covers everything for the Levi-Jennings charts. I'm just going to move on to the histograms now. So they're made in the exact same function. You choose your histograms and generate them, and we'll get our bar chart that shows our frequency of results for each lot within an SDI range. If you hover over them, we will get some information showing the exact amount of results that have fallen within that specific SDI range. And you'll see the same thing occurs for each lot. If we combine them, we get the same bar chart features as our Levi Jennings, where each lot is shown as a color and is color coded, where we can choose what lots we wish to look at. So if we would like to specifically look at our 1039 UN tests and look at difference in instrument performance, we can then see that our instrument performance is slightly better for our Randox B, Randox XD-B. Okay. Finally, we have our performance summary chart. So this is our peer group comparison chart where our results are being compared against our peers. They're shown, our results are shown as dots and triangles, etc., that are color coded to the lot on the chart. The chart is broken down by SDI and CVI, where we have a desirable, acceptable, and borderline range, which is highlighted by colors. Outside of this range is our unacceptable. You'll notice that we can only see 4 data points here. However, if we were to change the SDI range, we then will see our other lots that are outside of our borderline line. We can also select and deselect lots, similar to the histograms and Levi Jennings. If you scroll down, we'll then get each lot shown in a table. If you were to click on the triangle, it will then provide statistics. So we will have the amount of results that we have entered by the lab, similar for the peer group, and the mean statistics, SDCV, as well as the number of peers that are contributing to the data. So we have 5 labs that are contributing to the results of 1,430. We have our CVI and SDI score. If we were to open up another lot, we can then see that our 2.057 SDI is an unacceptable performance and therefore is highlighted in red. We can also generate these in an individual chart, where beside it, we will then have our statistics for each lot shown beside the chart. Is there any questions on any of the charts before I move on again? Okay, no problem. Okay, so we're almost there. One of the last things I want to show is our reports. Oh, sorry. Yes, this app does record and save the login history. So this is shown in our auditing. So if we go to our auditing, we can select a user, we can select a category, and we can show what they have done. So we can select a category or we can leave it open. Select a date range for which we're wanting to look is normally within a week, and click search, and then we'll be able to see what a user has done in the past, whether or not they have edited results, whether or not they have added a comment or any function that they've done within the software itself. Does that answer your question? Yeah, perfect. Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to clear my selections. So to do our reports, we first select a test that we wish to look at. Come to our report section, and we have 5 available. So first one we're going to look at is a statistical analysis report. Start by choosing a date range. And then we can choose who we compare against. So it's a drop-down menu, just like the rest of Acusera 24/7, where we can choose whether or not we compare against our world peer group or a group. Our world peer group includes all peers and all accounts that have data entered into them, whereas our group is against if we were part of a lab group, it would compare our results against the rest of the labs within that group. So we'll just choose world for now, and then we choose whether or not we compare by assay, instrument, or method. And then we can generate the report. Okay, so whilst it's generating, I'm just going to go over some of the statistics that are included. So if we were increase our items per page, we can then see some of the tests that we are getting our information on. And then we'll have the lot number within each test, the instrument name that is used, the method that is used. We'll then be given information on our participant, which is ourselves, and the date range we've chosen, and our cumulative range. And within each date range, we'll have the number of results we've entered, the mean of those results, the SD, CV, SDI, and CVI. Same thing for our cumulative. And then we will have our peer group statistics as well. We will have the number of results they have entered for that lot number and assay, the mean of those results, the SD, and then the CV. If we were to scroll down, we can see some of the statistics that our peer group have logged for those assays and tests. This report is downloadable in Excel and PDF format. So anywhere we see these icons, this means that the report or chart, etc., is downloadable in Excel or PDF format. The next report we have is our statistical metrics report. Exact same as the analysis report, except with different statistics. So we choose our date range first, then we choose our peer group, and then we choose our comparison method. Click the generate button, and we'll begin to generate results. The statistical metrics report is very useful because it provides bias percentage, a CV, and a sigma score, as well as total error statistics for each lot number. It also provides the same statistics for our peer group, and we get our target values of our target bias and our total allowable error. There are some customization features in these reports where we can change the order of our statistics by clicking and dragging. We can also drag them down into our report as well. Increase. We can also collapse each assay. As the report is being generated, the collapsible function may not operate correctly, as you just seen. This is because data is constantly being populated into the report. So the amount of rows within each assay is constantly changing, and that is why we have to wait for the progression to reach the end for us to be able to collapse each assay. Okay. Our next report is our peer group statistics. We start by choosing a lot number. And an analyte. We don't have to choose an analyte. We can leave that open so that we see all the statistics for all of the analytes within that lot. We can choose then a date range or leave it as cumulative. We're going to leave it as cumulative by selecting all and clicking generate. Once this is generated, we're given information on the analyte. So each analyte that is within that lot, the method, the manufacturer, group, model, and the unit of measurement, as well as the number of results, the mean of those results, the SD, CV, and the amount of peers that have contributed to that data. We can then sort by our means. We can, if we wanted to look at a specific analyte, sort by analyte, and then sort by instrument model. And we can see how certain instrument models perform better than others by looking at our SD and CV scores. This is useful if a lab is trying to see which instrument or method, etc., is performing better than others by looking at peer group data. Next report is our uncertainty of measurement report. This report is very useful as it shows our uncertainty measurement values for each test. This is a requirement to show uncertainty measurement values and percentages to reach our ISO 15189 guidelines. So most labs will want this function. So whenever we click generate, we'll be shown each assay, the instrument model, the lot, the number of results, the mean, and then we'll be given our uncertainty of measurement values. These are shown in intra-precision values, inter-precision, our uncertainty of measurement value, and our expanded uncertainty of measurement value. The same thing is then shown as percentages as well. You notice this is also downloadable in Excel or PDF format. This is useful for archiving purposes. Final report is our exception report. We start by choosing a date range, generating the report, and it will then show all of the assays we have in our system, the instruments that are for that QC test and the lots, the number of results that we have entered for those tests, and then each of those results, the amount of results are then separated by where they fall within an SDI range. So whether or not they are within 2 SDI, which would be our acceptable performance, between 2 to 3 SDI, which would be unacceptable, and greater than 3, which would be very undesirable. So this is useful if a user or lab supervisor, etc., wanted to see their most underperforming tests and to troubleshoot these, they can quickly sort by their greater than 3 SDI in descending order, and we can then see that our CA199 assay has almost a quarter of its results greater than 3 SDIs. Similarly, if we were to do the same for our 2 SDI, we can then see all of our results that have been performing within our 2 SDI range. Okay. The very last thing I want to show before we finish up is our new accessibility panel. If we come over to this little man in the corner, click on it, we can then change the contrast of the site, highlight any links, change the text size, the spacing between the text, make it dyslexia friendly with a different font, change the cursor size, add a reading mask, a guide for reading, the height of the lines, the alignment of the text, as well as the saturation of the site.